Okay, this is a quick one. Some people have said that 500 anti-AI art segments was not enough, you know? I will say this, like, I play a few role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons. I'm playing Baldur's Gate 3 right now. I enjoy these games quite a lot. I like DMing, I like storytelling. When I'm doing something in a tabletop game, I like to make character tokens. Very common practice where to have a token you move around on a online board, roll 20 or whatever, you give it an image so that it's, when you're fighting a giant monster, it doesn't look like an indistinct white blob. You can give it an image. One thing that I've noticed is that when you do basically any Google searches now, but especially anything involving art, half of the replies or half of the prompts in Google Images are AI art now. I looked up female drow warrior art because it was relevant to the campaign, and fully like half of the responses now are AI art. It's insane, you know? You can usually tell because their title will just be a bunch of like tags and descriptions. AI generated artwork, drow female warrior, nobody would title it like that unless it was like an AI prompt or whatever. It's all over the place, you know? Yeah, you can search DeviantArt to get specific results that aren't AI art, but like it's everywhere now. Um, and do you think it's okay to use AI generators to make character tokens because it's not for art, it's purely fictional? If you want to, for your purpose, sure. But the problem is that that image still gets uploaded to like the database of images that it can pull from in the future, right? Like that gets cycled back into the feed, meaning that as time goes on, more and more AI art is going to pull from AI art, meaning that it'll deviate further and further from what humans want from it because it's pulling on this incestuous sample, you know? Now, that's an issue we've talked about before. But I wanted to talk about something that's been discovered recently that also pertains to AI art's inability to discern what exactly it's pulling from and the consequences of that. Here's a title coming out from today. Hundreds of images of child sexual abuse found in dataset used to train AI image generating tools. Stanford Internet Observatory researchers said in a study published earlier this week. So yeah, pretty much exactly what you would expect given from the title. You don't even need to continue reading, honestly, because, that pretty much tells you everything you need to know. The presence of these images in the training data may make it easier for AI models to create new and realistic AI-generated images of child abuse content. I'm sure this is extremely interesting to many of the people who, proselytize the virtues of AI art on Twitter, or deepfake images of children being exploited. It continues on to this extent, so on and so on. Of course, if there are about 1,000 original images of child abuse, that would mean then that it gets like sort of iteratively spread out into the entire art sampling process as it moves forward, right? Because then as AI art resamples from itself, everything becomes tainted with that. To be honest, I always kind of felt like this was a big part of AI image generation, because if you ever use AI art to generate like girl, the default girl or woman even that AI art generates looks very young, and it's almost always highly sexualized. Like, you've all seen this, right? Even the AI generation algorithms that advertise themselves, where you'll see a Twitter ad that'll say something like, use this system, check out this cool realistic anime thing or whatever. And then like, it'll be like, here's like a chick in a pink dress or whatever. And the girl always looks really young. And I feel like a lot of that biases itself towards the interests of the kind of people who really like AI. That is to say, greasy nerds, porn addicts, and pedophiles. I hate AI art. I really do. There is definitely a huge overlap between like tech fetishistic geek and really weird attitude towards women. So there's no denying that, But I feel like this is a problem that kind of, it's not really going to get better. I feel, again, as the content becomes more incestuous, as it feeds on itself further, the kind of people who use this stuff will be the kind of people that produce this, and so on and so on. Vosh, this is a really silly take. One might as well imagine an early 20th century take saying, cars will let pedos get to your children faster, it's just a tool. This is the kind of delusion that AI art defenders, like, this is what gets me, and it's why I don't do AI art debates. It's the you don't even engage, like, you're not creative enough to understand. Well, that's your problem, right? You're not a creative. If you were, you wouldn't use it. You would hate it, because creatives don't like AI art. But, like, you don't understand, when people say it's just a tool, well, that's not really like, that's not really like a vindication, right? You can criticize a tool for what it does. In fact, we do. I mean, isn't that a big part of like gun control discourse? Meaningless. Absolutely meaningless. Anyway, yeah, Black and the Borg. That sounds about right. Yes, big bald communist. I talked about it earlier. It's a bit telling they all use the same line. It's just a tool. They have no creativity and just parrot the same stuff. Well, they don't engage with the actual criticism here. Like, what about it constantly self-selecting and feeding off its own prompts to the point where its interests deviate more and more from what humans could initially feed it with? What about the fact that it steals content by sampling from and like ripping off of artists without their permission to use it in like a data set, you know? What about the idea that you have no like meaningful control over the actual output apart from like tweaking a bunch of invisible determining knobs, you know, in the prompt that you create, which allows you to like change the image, but only in these sort of weird abstract ways. You're kind of like spitballing it, you know, which isn't really a creation process. Creating something isn't like, I wonder what this button will do. Usually it's usually a little more deliberate than that. That's what creative skill is, you know. They don't actually engage with any of it. So it's just, there's no point in talking about it. I'm talking about AI art, Derek IT Pro. Hey Vosh, AI art is killing us freelance illustrators and concept artists now. So many are dropping out of the industry. Yeah, this is also something they can't grapple with. The only reason AI art is capable of producing anything even remotely cool looking is because it steals the artistic style and like stroke lines of real artists. So what happens if real artists are put out of the game because they can no longer make any money because everyone keeps like deferring to AI art because it's cheaper in producing stuff? And then like there's no real initial sample to pull from, and then all of a sudden the AI art is bad. It's almost like it's almost like these are like really obvious problems anyone should know. And if you're defending AI art, you should know those problems and have better responses to it than like it's just a tool. Like, okay, you know, so are the gas chambers. What I'm saying is you're morally equivalent to Hitler, all right? That is the argument that I'm making here. Thank you. You're underestimating the engineering behind advanced prompts. And then they say shit like it's more complicated than you think, as if that like does anything with what I've said, you know? It doesn't steal, it learns from it. It can't learn. It can't learn. It's not a person. This is the reason ChatGPT still uses data only from before ChatGPT was released. Remember when Elon Musk put out like the Grok AI on Twitter, and when somebody asked it to generate or to like make a virus, it pulled the ChatGPT prompt against creating harmful content because it's like self-cannibalizing because Grok doesn't withhold the sampling from before ChatGPT was invented? Isn't the OpenAI guy an insane Zionist? All people who work in AI development are evil. They're all little Hitlers. At least look at it. Look at what? This new data poisoning tool lets artists fight back against generative AI. The tool called Nightshade messes up training data in ways that could cause serious damage to image generating AI models. So what? Does it just like create billions of images that have fake tags that fuck up the production? AI companies such as OpenAI, Meta, Google, and Stability AI are facing a slew of lawsuits from artists who claim their copyrighted material and personal information was scrapped without consent or compensation. Yep. Poison samples. Oh, I see. It just kind of dilutes the... Huh, interesting. Yeah, Archrave, I still hate that. If I commission something from an artist and they just like trained an AI on their art style to create it, I hate that. Like, why do anything then? Why exist? Why live? The whole, like, this is the problem with you tech fucks. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be rude to you specifically, but I am actually. With you tech fucks applying a tech mentality to art. Art is about communication. It's about purpose, intent, delivering intention. It's not about refining or optimizing. Why do you think like it's like why would anyone ever make art with paint when it's faster and easier to use digital? You've missed the point of art. Art is about communication. It's about a story, the message that you get. Like if you take from that, it's like, oh, well, what if they just made it more efficient? Art shouldn't be more efficient as a first principle. It's the first principle is communication, is the ability for it to transmit the intentions and will of the artist. If you're compromising that for efficiency, then you're production lining art. Why even live? You know? Like, you can do things that make it easier to produce, but there's like a sliding scale there, you know? If you're just pressing a button that generates an image in your style, like, what does that say when I get it? Like, what I could have made that by training off of your shit, you know? I want something you made that you thought about. Art is whatever people want it to be. Your definition is not a commonly accepted one. I'm pretty sure it is. I feel like most people would agree that art has to be produced by humans. Or like a living thing. Like art can't just, you wouldn't point up at the sky and say it's art. You'd say it's pretty. But like, sure, you can change the definition if you want, but I maintain the meaning of the difference. Also, it's not really a coincidence that like everyone hates AI generated stuff. Like tech people think that the problem with this is that like the AI generated stuff isn't good enough yet. But the truth is that humans just innately gravitate towards items with meaning. Why do you think humans are willing to pay more for like handcrafted items and have for all of human history or whatever? Or why do you think like people care more about items that bring them less utility but have more meaning? Do you think it's like a coincidence? Like do you like, is that just like an irrationality that like the perfect like tech bro STEM dipshit AI take is that when humans feel more attached to something because of the meaning with which it was created, that's a flaw. Like that's a problem that needs to be overridden. Inhuman. Like these people, like think. I think never mind. What would you say to people who think you're being a laggard and that AI art is just a new tool the same way camera was a new tool? Because tools are supposed to let you do specific things and refine your intentions with them. Like, AI art isn't actually a tool, not in the generative sense, because A, you're training off a data set you don't have control over, and B, I've seen what it looks like to get good at using generative AI. You know what that means? It means learning how to type out a bunch of tags. What happens if the data set updates? What happens if there's a new like update to the all your shit stops working all of a sudden because you were never using a tool. At best, you were commissioning an AI blob. Like you're not refining your understanding of a system. All you're doing is like throwing shit into the wind and finding whichever like angle you throw shit at works. You can do tons of stuff with a camera that's purposeful and useful, you know? It like directly refines your understanding. You can become an expert in a camera, but nobody can become an expert in generative AI because it's a black box. The machine learning program that actually directs all of the shit, like it's completely invisible to you. It's behind an opaque wall. You'll never understand it. It's designed not to be understood. It can't be understood, you know? At least like if you use an algorithm on like Photoshop or something, you can know the math that it does. You can know the difference between like motion blur and Gaussian blur, or like which sampling tools do what, or which filters do what, or like what math is being applied to the pixels, what it happens when you blur, which like average like color pixel. You can learn all that. It's totally learnable. Humans wrote those programs. They're not like invisible machine learning things or whatever. You can learn that, you know? Sharpening tool, that's not magic. Sharpening tool works by like blurring a version of an image, superimposing it, then looking at the greatest contrast between the blurred image and the existing image and using that to like increase the contrast in those lines to find where the edges are. Like that, like you can do that, you know? Nobody can do this with AI generation. Vosh, have you never seen a piece of AI art you've considered good? That's like asking me if I've ever seen like a mountain, like a mountain range that I thought was good art. It doesn't matter if the image was beautiful. There are plenty of AI art images that are beautiful. It's still not art. And therefore it doesn't have the meaning that art would. You can appreciate it as like the majesty of nature, but AI art isn't the majesty of nature. It's just a like blob that got stolen from other artists, you know? So like I can appreciate a mountain range because at least there's some gravitas and like, you know, sublime beauty to it, but you know, not to generated AI. I hate these. Yeah. Does art made by apes count as art? Yes. Why are there so many AI bros in chat? I don't know. I don't know what I've done to be attracted. I don't know what I've done to make them attractive or attracted to my. I have no idea. I don't know. Vosh, should we not have internet? What are you even talking about? What are you even? What it's you don't even. It's always just a bunch of stupid. What are you even talking about? What? This is what we get for having a society capitalist. No, this isn't just a capitalism problem. Even if you had no profit motive, there would still be people who, for social clout or for their own reasons, would like sort of destroy meaning in the art from themselves and from others. Because like saving on the labor of producing something will always be valuable, even with no profit motive. You think under socialism, people wouldn't still be interested in like making concept art quickly? This isn't just a capitalism issue. I feel like these people never admit they straight up hate art. Yeah, I agree. I think you have to hate art and hate life and hate humanity to disagree with me on this. I think it's sort of a wretched soul problem. We create technology to free up more time to make art. What makes learning so magical that a machine can't do it? A machine can't think. Also, new chatter. Banned forever. Is that your first message in my chat? Invalid query 004 because you're that new. Not even anything to pull from the database. Do you think a machine could outthink that chatter? Yes, I do think that. As you say, machine learning algorithms are fundamentally just statistical approximations of what they are trained on using statistical inference methods. Dude, I hate it so much when AI bros pretend that's not the case. Like, every time it gets talked about, and I'm like, yeah, that just like rips a bunch of data sets and like cobbles it together. People are like, oh, it's more complicated than that. No, it's not. Like, it takes more words to properly describe, and it's a complicated system, but fundamentally, yeah, that's what it's doing. Why they pretend there's like some magical high? It's the exact same kind of grift where people for decades now have been pretending they've made like actual AI, like real artificial intelligence, by going up one level of complexity when fundamentally the underlying system is just a bunch of and if statements, or in this case, the machine learning like associations or whatever. It's the exact same thing, you know? What are your idea on Duchamp's The Fountain? It's art. Easily art. Big art. Oh my god. I've been using ChatGPT to help me argue like you, lol. Okay. You're arguing with people online, and you're using ChatGPT to send them messages that are formatted the way I would talk? I'm banning you for a month. I hate you. Learn to make your own arguments, you derivative. Watch my content and synthesize it using your human brain. And I do not endorse any summary of my positions made by ChatGPT. In terms of like my hope for the future, this is about as corruptive as it gets. This is worse than the rise of global fascism, and I'm not kidding. The apparent realization that a significant portion of the human species doesn't understand what communication or art mean, and they just think that it's another thing to be sort of like trivialized through automation. It's genuinely insane. Why are you so emotional about this? You seem so logical about other things. Oh, you were the person who earlier I said that was your first message, Permid. Genuinely not sure if I would rather contend with like a global rise in the popularity of AI art or a global rise of fascism. Genuinely not sure. I'm like mathing out in utility. What's worse, like unimaginable death and terror and like state control and ethnic supremacy, or a complete death of the meaning of art and communication? I'm genuinely trying to think which future is more horrific. I'd have to math that one out for a while. All the little Hitlers in chat, all waiting for their big day. All waiting for your goddamn beer hall putsch, where you're going to, like, have a very publicized legal case where you're sued for fucking plagiarism or art theft because you did some generative shit off of, like, copyrighted material or whatever. You're all ready. You're going to go to jail, and then you're going to come out, you're going to write a big manifesto on AI art supremacy, and then you're going to take over. All right. Well, this went about the same way that all AI segments do.